This video is a summary with highlights and comments of that started out with a LinkedIn article, which was an interview that talked about an interview with Accenture CEO Julie Sweet. And I went through and watched the video and grabbed some highlights from it to make this video. So I'll be doing her comments and then sort of my comments, my perspective on that with respect to learning and development, because that's a fairly strong core of what I do. So fascinating interview. I really recommend you watch it. I will put the link, the card near the end of this video, but I'll also put links to the interview. And also I did timed links since it was on YouTube. I was able to put timed links to go to the specific things that I refer to, if that's of any use to anybody else. I hope it is. So she said that the top skill needed for jobs these days, so if you want to get hired at somewhere like Accenture, is very simply the ability to learn. She went on to say that this was, as she put it, the learning agility. So she said that the skills that were present in Fortune 500 companies, the most important skills in 2017, 40% of those skills are now no longer relevant to jobs in those same companies. That just shows you the pace of learning and why they have such an emphasis on employees and development being an ongoing thing and education being an ongoing thing. And she said she had a really brilliant question that they asked, and they asked this to all interviewees. And that is, what have you learned in the last 6 months? Now, if they're coming from school, it would be that wasn't part of school. If it was something else, and this is speculation on my part, but she said this was asked of everybody. So it would be, what have you learned in the last 6 months not to do with your job or your career, if you were already in a career stream position rather than coming right out of school? And she says this is a brilliant question because what it answers is whether you're hiring somebody who likes to learn. So whether you want to be a business leader or CEO, or you want to work for a progressive company like Accenture, you have to be willing. If learning isn't something you love to do, that you don't do as a habit, kind of you might be disadvantaged to that. And as a leader, learning is fundamental. If you don't do it, the greatest leaders of our time are continuously learning. Elon Musk learned rocket science from books. He asked an expert, he borrowed his books, and he read about it. Warren Buffett apparently reads about 6 hours a day. Bill Gates reads about 50 books a year. And 50 books a year isn't really hard, because if you listen to them, a book is about 8 hours. So 8 hours a week, I guarantee you it's not that hard. And the reason I know that is because I cover 50 plus books a year, not because I'm extra smart, but because I can listen an hour a day to a book while I exercise or do other things. So learn to love the learning, otherwise you're probably screwed. Okay, so they said actually in the first 6 months after the pandemic, they actually upskilled 100,000 people in the first 6 months after the pandemic, because the demand was there and they had the training in place to do it. And this is also part of that learning and development, and why you as a business leader need to have upskilling, as she's calling it, or training, good training for continuous learning in your company, because of what the reference to the 2017 and 40% of those skills now being irrelevant. She said, one of the things that people love about Accenture is that they feel like they're constantly being invested in, and that in fact, they spend about $1 billion a year, an average of 40 hours per person per year in training. Now, what's most important to me here is not only that they're doing ongoing training for them, but people feel like they're constantly being invested in. So this goes towards creating a business culture where people want to be, you being worthy of the company and the company being worthy of you. if you're a leader, that's the kind of investment you should be making. Training is not a loss if it keeps you on top of things. And if it doesn't, then you need to get better training. You need to up your standards. Many times companies fail or have really poorly performing workers, not because the workers are dumb or lazy, but because nobody ever trained them. I can personally tell you, in most of the jobs I've ever had where there was training, it was kind of like, here's the stuff, here's basically how you do it, go. And that's the kind of training I think a lot of companies do, and they just expect that to work out. If you do, that's your own fault, and you need to look at your L&D a lot deeper and make it something worth doing. So she talks about the two basic skills that were upskilled in these people. She talked about the need for both deep domain knowledge, which tends to be a lot more evergreen, and technology skills, which of course is always moving constantly forward. But things like, oh, as long as humans still have brains, the kind of domain knowledge I have in my neurocognitive design and neurocognitive leadership, as long as we're dealing with humans and all humans have brains, that will be evergreen. That's not to say that as technology and as neuroscience advances, I won't have a lot more to learn about that later technology, but it's not currently relevant for how and what I do. So they said, actually, she said that they had hired 500 people with deep domain knowledge and then put them through a technology boot camp. And this is an informative thing. That is, you're probably more valuable. You need to have technology literacy, which she refers to, but you're probably most valuable for having deep domain knowledge that is evergreen and will continue to be valuable regardless of the changes in technology. And on top of that, having the capability, the willingness, the propensity to continuously learn for that dynamic technology stuff, which moves so fast, because you're going to need to learn it if you want yourself and your company to stay on that front edge. And she said something else, which I really love, because this goes to my goal setting, which is more based on knowing your end destination, where you are in the direction you head. Most of the other stuff in between there, like SMART goals, I wrote an article a long time ago called Why SMART Goals Are Stupid. And I mean it, because there's too many unknowns to make, especially a plan. Even a plan a year long is kind of naive. It's a framework at best. But if you clearly know your destination and you know where you are, you know how to point or shoot a sight line to get where you want to go. So I thought that was good. And she talked about the hot skills, the skills that were most in demand. And it was the deep knowledge of technology, to industry, and deep domain skills. So it's sort of the same thing repeated there. And then the next thing she talked about, these are in order to the interview. We're going to run at a time. So I'll probably do at least 2 or possibly 3 of these, depending how long it takes, and then follow it up with a reference to how to learn better. I did an old video of that, and I will put that at the end of this video or in the description. So that is what she called the twin T's, which was trust and technology. So if you want to talk about psychological safety and the fact that what a company like Accenture thinks about it, it's like, well, high tech is really super important, especially for an IT company, but trust was the other thing of sort of equal importance to that. Not, okay, who cares? Let's just get a lot of robots in here. So it's telling as to how a progressive company thinks. And if you want to be a progressive company, things like that need to be in your culture. And if they're not, you have to put them in that culture. She said that in terms of their hiring in North America, 40% of their job openings do not require 4-year degrees as of late. So this is a progressive new idea because they wanted to expand their pool. And out of that, she said that about 20% of their hires did not have a 4-year degree. And she said this was actually been a great win because how fantastically those individuals worked out as being good learners, hard workers, and because they had that chance, they really made it worth their while and the company's while. That's as far as we can go. I'm already out of time. So this is the first one of at least 2. This is Crush It Club 140, Accenture CEO vid or video review. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.